Whoa, what was that?
That was a knuckleball, and this is Sports Simplified. Now, a knuckleball is as mysterious as the bottom of the ocean. The reason it is because the knuckleball, when thrown, never breaks the same way twice. And the reason that is because since it has very low spin, not no spin, a perfect knuckleball has about a quarter rotation to a half rotation. But by having it barely have any spin, the air interacts with the surface and the seams of the ball, making it pretty much move, have an erratic sense of movement each time it is thrown. And depending on the wind patterns and the weather, the amount of spin and the speed of the ball, it will move and break differently every single time. Now, the way a knuckleball throws varies because you can either throw it literally with the knuckles on the seams like that, and you throw it with the wrist cocked. You don't go down like that. Unlike a fastball, it's more like a changeup where you just go like that. Or you can throw it how most of the major leaguers throw it, is they dig their fingernails into the ball and they throw it like that with the wrist cocked. That was really more made popular, I believe, by Tim Wakefield. That was his way to throw it, and then of course after him, some of the other guys throw it that way. Now, knuckleballs are also thrown very differently. You can throw them hard, you can throw them soft. There's multiple different ways you can throw a knuckleball, and all of that goes into how it varies each time you throw it, because you can throw a hard one and it breaks very sharp, or you can throw a slow one and it does a lot of dancing. But the point of the knuckleball is it's very hard to pick up. In fact, it is so hard to pick up that it is arguably the most unhittable pitch in baseball. The reason that is due to human reaction time. According to physicist Robert Adair, the human reaction time of 130 milliseconds is simply too slow to adjust to the cutting break of a knuckleball. And the reason that is because it breaks every single time differently. The unpredictability factor that goes into as well the break means a hitter can't constantly keep track of it or predict really where it's going to go except by luck. Therefore, his theory really is that a knuckleball is impossible to hit except by luck. The only way you can hit it is luck, or if it's flat and it doesn't go anywhere. But it's more the idea is the unpredictability of it, and that's why it's so hard to hit. According to a not recent, but about a 10-year-old paper done, these scientists concluded that a knuckleball doesn't break any more than any other standard pitch. The only difference is that unpredictability factor. And what that does is it throws off the hitter's not only timing and rhythm, but even be able to hit the ball other than just pure luck. Pete Rose, the greatest hitter of all time, said that he could work for 3 weeks to get his swing down, and then in one night when facing Phil Niekro and the knuckleball, he would mess it up. And he said that having to hit that thing is a miserable way to make a living. Just how dominant the knuckleball was against the greatest hitter of all time, Pete Rose. As hard as a knuckleball is to hit, it is also as nearly impossible to catch. Often many teams in the last 20 years with some of the more famous knuckleball pitchers like Tim Wakefield or R.A. Dickey, they all had special knuckleball catcher specialists. A lot of those catchers would use a first base glove to catch the knuckleball, which, yes, it would be harder to throw out runners at second, but it was to be able to catch the ball. As a famous catcher, Bob Uecker, yes, the same Bob Uecker who was the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers for a long time, and the voice in the movie Major League and Major League 2, he's on record basically quoting, saying that the best way to catch a knuckleball is to wait for it to stop rolling and pick it up. Meaning that you're not going to catch it, you might as well just let it go and go to the backstop and pick it up once it's done, because it's so hard to be able to catch that ball. Now, not only is a knuckleball hard to hit and hard to catch, but it is also very hard to throw effectively. Probably the most famous knuckleballer himself, R.A. Dickey, the only one to win a Cy Young Award, said that it takes about a year to understand the fundamentals of the knuckleball. Not only are knuckleballers rare, but typically most pitchers don't turn into knuckleballers until they are in the professional system, that being in the minor leagues typically. And the reason that is because typically at a younger level in the high school and other levels around that point, scouts are now looking for arm strength and arm potential. They're not looking for savvy mechanics or cool pitches that hitters cannot catch up to or anything like that in that realm. They want you to throw 100, throw hard, and somewhat be able to control it. The most recent example of a knuckleballer in the major leagues is Matt Waldron, who is a rookie starting pitcher for the San Diego Padres this year, and he developed his knuckleball in the minor leagues just a couple years ago in the Padres system. And kind of the idea with that is he started throwing it, and some of the people around him, his coaches, were like, "That's pretty good, you should keep throwing it." And so he did, and now he uses it as a secondary pitch to his fastball, and he's been largely effective with it this year. Two of the most famous knuckleballers figured it out in a similar fashion. Starting with Tim Wakefield, after he was shortly released by the Pittsburgh Pirates, he was then signed by the Boston Red Sox, where he there would learn the knuckleball from two of the most famous knuckleballers before Tim Wakefield, that being Phil and Joe Niekro, the brothers who would dominate in the major leagues for a lot of years, I believe, in the 60s and 70s, mainly Phil Niekro, who was on the Milwaukee and Atlanta Braves, and that's where he would kind of master that. Bob Uecker was his catcher, and as he said earlier, he didn't really like the knuckleball. And really, the problem with the knuckleball in that real world too is there's not many knuckleballers that existed in that time frame, and because of that, it kind of died out because people weren't teaching that pitch forward. For instance, Tim Wakefield was one of the only pitchers that learned it in that era. And what happened to him? It drastically changed the course of his career, making him one of the most beloved Red Sox in recent memory. And may he rest in peace, as he died last year with a battle with brain cancer. But he was one of the most reliable pitchers for the Boston Red Sox in the late 90s and early 2000s, leading them to win the World Series for the first time since the Great Bambino Curse. R.A. Dickey was struggling in his career in Texas, where he kind of threw mid stuff, but he had this funky forkball that he called the Thing before he figured out that it was kind of a hard knuckleball. Then he kind of refined it, learned more about the knuckleball, and within a couple of years, in 2012 on the New York Mets, after kind of bouncing around for a while, he had this incredible run where he was unstoppable with his main pitch, the knuckleball, and he went on to win the Cy Young Award in 2012. He is the only knuckleball pitcher to ever win the Cy Young Award. The pitch peaked in popularity in the 1940s. At a point, I believe one of those years, the Washington Senators had a starting pitching staff who all threw knuckleballs. It was very interesting in a time where the knuckleball, the spitball, the screwball, all the things where you could just mess with the ball were very popular. But shortly after that, it died out, and since most people didn't throw a knuckleball anymore, so did kind of the ideas of it. And really, if you look in the modern day, I believe only between 2004 and about 2021, there were only 70 pitchers who threw a knuckleball in that time at all, at any level throughout the major and minor leagues. Now, the one I grew up watching was Stephen Wright. He was a knuckleballer for the Boston Red Sox, and he threw a wicked knuckleball. That was the clip you saw at the beginning of this video with Vin Scully over it saying, "What was that thing?" I mean, that was a knuckleball, and it was a nasty knuckleball in that outing as well, which I believe it's playing during this video. But he threw a 9-inning shutout, you could say a Greg Maddux, but as a knuckleball pitcher, and he did a great job of it. Unfortunately, I believe he stopped pitching for the Red Sox about 2021-ish around there. He had to deal with some injuries. But really, since then, there hasn't been a dominant knuckleballer since the newfound Matt Waldron of the San Diego Padres. And I hope he throws as many knuckleballs as possible, and he makes that pitch popular again. It's also one of the few rare pitches where you actually want to throw it slower, or rather, you can throw it slow, medium, hard, but by throwing it slower, you let that have more dancing and break in the air between when you're throwing it and it reaches the plate, making it even harder to pick up for the hitters. And kind of the plus with that is by throwing it slower, you're putting less strain on your arm. And in the day and age of baseball, where pitching injuries are an epidemic, everyone's elbow is dying, this is a pitch that, in a way, can save baseball. And if I think more pitchers added to their repertoire, yes, it takes a long time to get used to and master, but you know how long a Tommy John injury takes to go through? It's about a 2-year process to get fully back and ready to go for pitching. So I think a year learning the knuckleball and using it more is a lot better than going to Tommy John surgery. Now, yes, you're not just going to throw knuckleballs, but by adding it in your repertoire, that's saving you from, another pitch that's going to put even more strain on your elbow, like a sweeper, one of those new pitches, or a really firm changeup. It's just something as you throw it slower, and eventually I'm sure we will see it revert back to that way. when everyone's elbow dies, because at the rate we're going, it's going to happen. But the way we're throwing now with the velocity so high, unfortunately, pitchers and their elbows, they're not holding up. And at some point, there's got to be a pushback to revert it to the old school of pitching in the Greg Maddux era and some of those other old guys, where it was more the savvy skills, the spin you would put on the ball, and really getting guys out by using your brain, not just throwing as hard as you can in a location, hitting the corners, high and away or low and in or high and in, but hitting the strike zone, not at someone's face. That's horrible what they're doing now. A guy I think that can really kind of help shape that mold and new era of baseball is Shota Imanaga, the starting pitcher this year for the Chicago Cubs. He doesn't throw that hard. He throws about 90, 92 with his fastball, but the spin he puts on his fastball is nearly unhittable. His fastball doesn't really drop that much. It kind of rises a little bit, or rather doesn't rise, it just stays on that level plane, and hitters can't hit it. Now, they might be able to adjust to it at some point, but then he can start throwing a sinker, and they won't be able to hit that either. He's beating them with his mental game and the way he spins the ball, even messing with their timing too with his leg kick, rather than just trying to blow someone by with some gasolina, which, yes, is exciting, but why don't you have that as your closer? As your starter who you want to get 6-7 innings or something like that. It's a food for thought, and I think the knuckleball might be a way to save baseball. I love the knuckleball. I love everything about it. I love how rare it is, and I love how dominant it can be when thrown effectively. And I just love watching the spin and it dance, and it's really a fun thing to do and throw. I mean, hopefully we'll see it more in the major leagues. Probably won't, but that's kind of my idea on it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you think about the knuckleball. If you like it, you don't like it, want to see more of it, think it's overrated, and as always, like and follow for more.